All right, let's dive right into the short game today. We're going to be looking at this training program from the SFT Golf Academy. And it's really all about those finesse shots, getting you to shave some strokes off that scorecard, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what's interesting? So many golfers overlook the short game. And it's really the easiest path to improving your score. Putting pitching bunker shots, it all adds up to about 65% of the game.
65%. Wow, so you're saying that more than half of the game is determined by these kind of like finesse shots around the green.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an example. So a tour player and a 28 handicap amateur both average around 10 pitches per round. But the difference is the amateur needs 5 pitch and roll shots to get close to the hole, while the tour player needs none. So that's 5 potential putts that you could be saving right there.
I have definitely felt the pain of those extra putts. So how does this academy, how do they approach the short game? What's their secret?
Well, they break it down into a few key areas. Putting, pitch and roll, pitching, bunker shots, visualization, and even get into the physics of how the ball rolls. So they're really combining the science of the game with those practical skills you need on the course.
So let's start with putting. I feel like that's always been a struggle for me, especially with consistency on the greens. Does this training program offer any insights into that?
Yeah, they actually have this really interesting concept called putting zone. And
Yeah.
it's all about understanding the interaction between your body, the putter, the ball, and the green. They use a blend of scientific research, visual concepts, and a biomechanical motion sequence called swing model. It was developed by Dr. Ralph Mann.
So this putting zone, what is swing model?
Basically, it's a model for how your body should move. During the putting stroke, it's based on research into biomechanics of putting, and it helps golfers develop a more efficient and repeatable motion. They combine that with Jeff Mangum's putting zone. Visual and mental concepts.
So is it more than just feel? There's actually some science behind it?
Exactly. Now let's move on to those pitch and roll shots. So crucial around the green. The Academy really dives deep into the data here. They reference a study by Dr. Mann. He analyzed the shots of 87 PGA Tour players from various distances.
Oh, wow. So they're using real data from the pros to inform their training.
Yeah, and this research forms the basis
Ah.
of their pitch and roll strategy.
Wow, that's impressive. So what kind of insights did they get from this study?
Well, one of the key findings was the importance of club selection for controlling both the height and the length of the shot. You have to get the ball to land a certain distance from the hole and then let it roll the rest of the way. And they actually provide specific recommendations for which club to use based on how far you want the ball to roll. For example, if you're 5 meters from the landing point and want the ball to roll another 7 meters, you should use your 52-degree wedge.
That's actually incredibly helpful. I think I always struggle with those in-between distances, knowing which club to use. So the guide also distinguishes between pitch and roll and pitching. Could you break down that difference for me?
Sure, so pitch and roll focuses on using the loft of the club to control the height and distance. Pitching, on the other hand, relies more on your swing technique and your grip to control the distance.
So pitch and roll is club selection, and pitching is all about swing technique. Okay, that makes sense. Speaking of pitching, I see that this academy has a specific program for mastering this technique. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, they break it down into 3 distinct motion sequences.
Ew.
And they suggest using 4 different clubs, giving you 12 different lengths that you can hit. They even provide a chart that tells you exactly which club and motion to use for specific distances. For instance, if you're 60 meters out
Right.
and need the ball to land about a meter from the flag, they'd recommend a 60-degree wedge with what they call the F-open motion.
F-open. What's that?
That's one of their 3 motion sequences for pitching. Each motion influences the trajectory and spin of the ball, allowing you to control that distance and the landing spot. It's explained in detail in the guide, along with all the biomechanics behind it.
So they get really detailed with it. Now, before I move on to bunker shots, I'm noticing that this academy really seems to emphasize the mental game. Why is that? Especially when it comes to the short game.
Well, the short game is where those high-pressure situations really come into play. Those crucial putts to save par, or, those delicate chips over a bunker. Your mental state can really make or break those shots.
Yeah, you're right. I think when I get nervous, that's when my technique really starts to fall apart. So what kind of mental strategies does this academy recommend?
Visualization is a big one. They encourage you to clearly see the shot in your mind. Before you even address the ball, imagine a ball flight, the landing spot.
So it's like mental rehearsal for your swing. Does that actually work?
Well, research has shown that visualization can actually improve your physical performance. It's like creating a blueprint for your brain to follow. They also emphasize developing a pre-shot routine, which can help to calm your nerves and focus your attention.
I've heard about pre-shot routines, but I've never really stuck to one. So what kind of routine do they suggest?
They incorporate three key elements, perfect examples: posture awareness,
Mm.
and a strategic approach to ball flight.
Perfect examples.
Yeah, so they believe in having a clear mental image of a perfectly executed shot, maybe from a pro that you admire, which can serve as a guide for your own swing.
Oh, so it's like having a model to emulate in your mind.
Exactly.
And what about this posture awareness? Why is that important?
Where your posture is really the foundation of a good swing. If you're hunched over or off balance, it's going to affect your contact. So they stress maintaining a balanced athletic stance throughout all your short game shots.
Yeah, I think that's something I definitely need to work on. I tend to get a little lazy with my posture, especially with the chipping.
It's easy to get sloppy with those shorter shots. But maintaining good posture is crucial for consistency. And this strategic approach to ball flight really ties back into what we were discussing earlier about pitch and roll versus pitching. They want you to understand how factors like club selection, swing speed, impact angle, all influence the ball's trajectory and spin.
So it's all about being deliberate with every shot, understanding how the mechanics affect the outcome, and not just hitting the ball and hoping for the best.
Exactly. It's about taking control and becoming a true short game strategist.
This is making me rethink how I should be practicing. Does this academy offer any advice on how to practice these techniques effectively?
Yeah, they actually have a whole section dedicated to drills. It's surprisingly in-depth. They cover everything from putting to bunker shots, with a focus on deliberate practice and setting clear goals for each session.
So it's quality over quantity.
Absolutely. They want you to practice with intention and purpose, not just mindlessly hitting balls. But before we dive into some of these drills, I'd love to hear what's resonating most with you so far. Is there anything standing out as something you might want to implement in your own game?
I think for me, the whole idea of visualization and those pre-shot routines has really caught my attention. I tend to just rush up to the ball and swing, especially when I'm feeling the pressure. So I think taking a moment to visualize and create a routine could really help me stay calm and focused. But I'm eager to hear about those practice drills too. I'm all about making practice more engaging and effective.
Well, you're in luck because they have some really creative drills that go beyond just hitting buckets of balls. For example, for putting, they have this thing called the ladder drill. You set up 5 balls at increasing distances from the hole, like rungs on a ladder, and the goal is to sink each putt in order. If you miss, you start back at the beginning.
That sounds fun. It's like a mini game within your practice session.
Right, and for chipping, they recommend what they call the clock drill. Imagine a clock face around the green, with the hole as the center, and you chip balls to different hours on the clock, focusing on distance control and accuracy.
I like that. It's visual, it's fun, and it forces you to hit different types of chip shots. All right, let's talk about bunker shots. I'm ready to conquer my fear of the sand.
Okay, well, one drill that stands out is what they call the line drill. You draw a line in the sand, about a foot behind the ball, and the goal is to hit the sand on the line, not the ball itself.
Wait, so you're not even trying to hit the ball. Why does that work?
It forces you to focus on making a clean, descending blow through the sand, which is essential for good bunker shots.
That's pretty clever. I can see how that would help me overcome that tendency to scoop the ball out, which I always do. Do they have any other advice for bunker shots?
Yeah, they emphasize practicing from a variety of lies, not just those perfectly fluffy ones. Challenge yourself with plugged lies, downhill lies, sidehill lies, to really prepare yourself for anything you might encounter on the course.
That makes sense. It's one thing to hit a good bunker shot from a perfect lie, but it's a whole different ballgame. When you're plugged in the sand, now with all these drills, is it just about going through the motions, or do they recommend tracking your progress?
They're big on tracking your progress. They suggest keeping notes on things like, how many putts you make, how close you chip the ball, how consistently you escape the bunker. So you can really use this data to identify your strengths and weaknesses and adjust your practice accordingly.
So it's not about mindless repetition. It's about practicing with purpose and using data to improve.
Exactly.
All right, so as we wrap up, this first part of our deep dive into the short game, what's the one key takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I would say mastering the short game. It's a journey, not a destination. It takes time, dedication, a willingness to constantly learn and adapt, but with the right knowledge, practice techniques, and mental approach. You can transform your short game and start shaving strokes off your score.
That's a great point. It's not about achieving perfection overnight. It's about embracing the process of continuous improvement. And hopefully now, our listeners feel empowered to take their game to the next level.
Absolutely. Remember, the journey to short game mastery starts with that first step. Choose one area to focus on, whether it's visualization, a new drill, refining your technique. Embrace the challenge and enjoy the process of becoming a short game expert.
Well said. Now get out there and start owning the short game.
Thanks for having me.
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, they actually dedicate a whole section to bunker shots. And their approach is pretty interesting. It's kind of different from that, just blast it out and belt, that I see so often.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's their secret?
Well, they really emphasize the importance of understanding how the ball position in the sand actually dictates how you should adjust the club face.
So there's actual technique involved. It's not just about swinging as hard as you can.
Exactly. For instance, opening the club face increases the loft, right? So that's going to give you a higher shot. With more backspin and a softer landing, closing the club face does the opposite. Lower shot rolls further.
So it's kind of like a flop shot versus a punch shot, but all within the sand?
Exactly. They also stress the importance of a full, confident swing through the sand. None of those wimpy shots.
That's where I go wrong. I always get tentative and try to scoop it out.
Yeah, and they even provide like standard distances for different clubs based on a specific swing and stance. So for example, with a 16-degree wedge, using their technique, you can expect to hit the ball about 7 meters out of the bunker.
Wow. So they give you really specific numbers to work with. I like that. It takes the guesswork out of it. Now I'm noticing that this academy really emphasizes the mental game. Why do you think that is? Especially when it comes to the short game.
Well, the short game is where you see a lot of those high-pressure situations. You know, think about those crucial putts to save par or those delicate chips over a bunker, you know. Your mental state can really affect those shots.
Yeah, you're right. I definitely know when I get nervous. That's when my technique tends to fall apart. So what kind of mental strategies do they recommend?
Visualization is a big one. They really encourage you to see the shot clearly in your mind before you even address the ball. So imagine the ball flight, the landing spot, everything.
So it's like mental rehearsal for your swing? Does that actually work?
You know, research has shown that visualization can actually improve physical performance. It's like creating a blueprint for your brain to follow. They also talk about developing a pre-shot routine, which can help to calm your nerves and focus your attention.
I've heard about pre-shot routines, but I've never really been consistent with one. What kind of routine did they suggest?
They actually incorporate 3 key elements: perfect examples, posture awareness, and a strategic approach to ball flight.
Okay, perfect examples.
So they believe that having a clear mental image of a perfectly executed shot, maybe from a pro that you admire, can serve as a guide for your own swing.
So it's like having a model
to emulate in your mind.
Interesting. And what about posture awareness? Why is that so important?
Well, your posture is really the foundation of a good swing. If you're hunched over or off balance, it will affect your contact. So they really stress maintaining a balanced athletic stance through all your short game shots.
Yeah, I don't think I pay enough attention to that, especially when I'm chipping around the green.
Yeah, you know, it's easy to get sloppy with those shorter shots, but that good posture is crucial for consistency. And then that strategic approach to ball flight ties back into what we were discussing earlier about pitch and roll versus pitching. They want you to really understand how factors like club selection, swing speed, impact angle all influence that trajectory and spin.
So it's not about just hitting the ball. It's about being more deliberate.
Taking control.
Yeah.
And becoming a short game strategist.
I like that. This is all making me think I need to rethink how I'm practicing. Does this academy offer any advice on how to effectively practice these techniques?
Yeah, they actually have a whole section on drills, which is surprisingly in-depth. They cover everything from putting to bunker shots, and they really focus on deliberate practice, setting clear goals for each session.
So quality over quantity.
Absolutely. Practice with intention and purpose, not just mindlessly hitting balls. So before we move on to those drills, I'm curious, what's resonating most with you so far? Is there anything you're thinking about trying to implement in your game?
Honestly, the whole visualization thing and the pre-shot routines, yeah, I think that's something I really need to work on. I just tend to get up there and swing, especially when I feel that pressure. So I like the idea of just taking a moment, visualizing and creating that routine. I think that would really help. But I am eager to hear about those practice drills.
Is he? You know, got to keep it interesting, right? Yeah, so you're in luck. They have some really, really creative drills that go beyond just hitting buckets of balls. So for example, for putting, they have this thing called the ladder drill. So you set up 5 balls at increasing distances from the hole, like rungs on a ladder, right?
Yeah.
And the goal is to sink each putt in order. And if you miss, you start back at the beginning.
Oh, I like that. It's like a little mini game,
Yeah.
and it forces you to make those putts under pressure.
Exactly.
Okay, what about chipping?
For chipping, they recommend the clock drill. So picture a clock face around the green, with
Oh.
a hole at the center, and you just chip balls to different hours on the clock, focusing on your distance control and accuracy.
I like that it's very visual. Okay, now for the bunker shots.
All right, let's get you out of the sand. So one drill that really stands out is the line drill. So you draw a line in the sand, about a foot behind the ball. And the goal is to hit the sand on the line, not the ball.
Wait, what? You don't hit the ball?
No, the sand.
How does that help?
It forces you to focus on making that clean, descending blow through the sand, which is crucial for good bunker shots.
Oh, that's smart. So you're not even thinking about hitting the ball. You're just focused on that technique.
Exactly.
I can see how that would really help.
Yeah.
Any other advice for bunker shots?
Yeah, they really emphasize practicing from all different kinds of lies, not just the perfect fluffy ones. Challenge yourself, get in there. Plugged lies, downhill lies, side hill lies.
Right, because it's one thing to hit it out of a perfect lie, but when you're actually out on the course, it's never perfect.
Exactly.
Now with all these drills, is it just about going through the motions, or do they suggest you actually track your progress?
They're big on tracking progress. They suggest keeping notes on things like how many putts you're making, how close you're chipping the ball, how consistently you're getting out of those bunkers. And then you can use that data to really pinpoint your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, so it's not just mindless practice. You're actually using data to improve.
Right. It's all about that intentional practice.
I like that. All right. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the short game, what's the one thing you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the biggest takeaway is this: mastering the short game. It's a journey, not a destination. It takes time, it takes dedication. You got to be willing to learn and adapt, but with the right knowledge, the right practice techniques, and the right mental approach, you can transform your short game and really start shaving strokes off that score.
I love that. It's not about being perfect right away. It's about that continuous improvement.
Exactly.
Well, I feel like I've learned so much today, and I'm really excited to start putting this all into practice.
Awesome. Yeah, get out there, own that short game.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure.